The
A
first one
World
is the
Without
strict
Islam.
prohibition
New
of zina.
podcast series.
Zina is the Islamic legal term for sexual immorality. So, adultery, fornication, any sex outside of marriage. Now, to a modern Western ear, this might sound
Restrictive. Old-fashioned.
for sure. But Abdullah argues you have to look at the function of the rule. He says it's about killing the market for exploitation. He argues that if you have a hard divine red line where sexual access is only legitimate within a public, responsible contract marriage, you remove the fluidity that predators exploit. You stop that normalization phase right in its tracks.
So it's not just about being good for its own sake. It's about removing the ambiguity that allows someone like Epstein to operate.
Exactly. It creates a firewall around sexuality. And this ties directly into his second point. The absolute protection of children and lineage.
Lineage is an interesting word there. We usually talk about protecting children, but lineage sounds more, I don't know, dynastic.
It's about identity and stability. In the Islamic worldview, a child has a God-given right to know who they are, who their parents are, and to be raised in a stable structure. Abdullah argues that the chaotic sexual environment revealed in these files, where children are just treated as commodities, is the direct opposite of protecting lineage.
It effectively dehumanizes them.
It turns them into objects of desire. And remember, if desire is God, then the object of desire is just a sacrifice. Abdullah argues Islam creates a sacred zone around the child that no amount of money or power is allowed to breach.
He also mentions modesty. And again, I think we need to unpack this because the stereotype is just, women covering up.
Right.
But the article seems to suggest something much broader.
Much broader. He specifies modesty in dress and interaction. He views it as a kind of social regulator. Think of it like a cooling system for a nuclear reactor.
A cooling system. I like that analogy.
If you have a society that is constantly sexually stimulated through media, through dress, through casual hookup culture, you are raising the temperature. You are feeding that desire as deity. Abdullah argues that Islamic modesty norms are designed to lower that collective temperature, to reduce the stimulation so that desire doesn't get the chance to take over the driver's seat.
So it's another structural defense against the slippery slope.
Yeah.
You don't start the fire, you don't have to fight the inferno.
Precisely. And then, of course, there is justice. He mentions severe punishment.
Right. And he contrasts it with what we see in the secular world.
Yeah.
In the Epstein case, we saw plea deals, we saw light sentences, we saw endless delays.
Abdullah points out that Islamic law prescribes severe, non-negotiable punishments for those who exploit others. The argument is simply that justice cannot be for sale.
But, and I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a second, we have seen corruption in Muslim countries. We've seen scandals. Even the author admits this. He's not claiming it's a utopia.
No, and that's a really crucial point he makes. He explicitly addresses this. He says, Muslims do not claim perfection for themselves. He acknowledges that Muslims sin, they break laws, they can be corrupt.
So isn't that a contradiction? If the system is so perfect, why are the people flawed?
Because Abdullah makes a very sharp distinction between the system and the user.
The system and the user, okay.
He argues that when a Muslim commits a crime like this, they are crashing the car because they ignored the traffic laws, they are acting against their faith.
Whereas in the secular system,
In the secular system, he argues, the traffic laws themselves are constantly being rewritten by the people driving the biggest cars. That's the difference he's pointing to.
so the moral code itself is up for grabs.
He claims that in Islam, the morality is divine, it's fixed, it's an anchor. A billionaire cannot lobby God to change the definition of adultery. They can't bribe the Quran to say that exploiting children is okay. The standard remains the standard, regardless of whether people fail to meet it.
That's the anchor concept, the idea that you need something that humans cannot touch, cannot edit, and cannot vote on.
Yes. And this leads to his final and arguably most powerful point, ultimate accountability.
The internal police officer.
In a way, look, the fatal flaw of any man-made law is that it depends on enforcement. If I can hide my crime, or if I can bribe the judge, or if I am the judge, I win. I get away with it.
Which is exactly what we see with these elites. They operate above the law because they basically own the law.
Right. But Abdullah argues that the Islamic system introduces a variable that no amount of money can neutralize: the belief in an all-seeing creator.
The idea that you are being recorded 247, not by a security camera, but by God.
And that there is a trial after death that you cannot lawyer your way out of. Abdullah argues that this belief, if it is sincere, acts as the ultimate deterrent. It creates a conscience that functions even when the doors are locked and the lights are off.
So his argument is that you can't have a truly moral society if the only thing keeping people in line is the fear of getting caught by other humans.
Because humans are fallible.
And bribable. You need the fear of something absolute.
That is the core of his thesis. He says that the difference between organized immorality and human dignity is the recognition of that divine boundary. One system relies on police, the other relies on piety.
It's a comprehensive argument. He takes us from the specific horror of the Epstein files through the philosophy of desire as God and lands on this structural solution.
And he wraps it up with a really interesting observation about the modern world. He notes that many people, seeing this moral confusion and this elite corruption, are actually turning to Islam.
The modern search.
Yes. And he clarifies that this isn't because they hate their own culture or because they're angry. It's because they're looking for safety. They are looking for that firm anchor.
They see the chaos of a world where morality is fluid.
And they want the stability of a world where morality is fixed. They're looking for a system that protects dignity better than human intellect seems to be managing on its own.
You know, it leaves us with a really heavy question to chew on. We like to think that we can just educate ourselves into being good people, that if we just have enough smart people writing laws, we can create a just society.
But Abdullah challenges that fundamental assumption.
He really does.
Yeah.
He leaves us with this question. If you remove divine boundaries, is the slide into corruption inevitable? Is it just a matter of time before desire replaces morality?
Can human intellect truly sustain a moral framework on its own forever? Or is morality like a battery? It eventually runs out of juice if you disconnect it from the source.
That's the question. Abdullah looks at the Epstein files and says the battery is dead. A provocative thought, and one that definitely makes you look at the headlines a little differently.
It was a fascinating read.
We will leave you to ponder that one. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the work of Mohammad Raj Abdullah. We'll catch you on the next one.